try again. I just tried to stream a minute ago, but looks like a few things have changed on Facebook, and it wasn't working, but hopefully it is now. Hopefully, it looks like Facebook has woken up and decided to play nice. So, apologies to anyone who just joined on YouTube, because I was only streaming on YouTube. The way I stream is I stream live to Facebook and YouTube at the same time. So I had to stop the stream and start again. But anyway, enough of that. Welcome, everybody, and hello. Back to the first live stream for about 6 weeks. Been kind of busy teaching workshops, teaching a workshop, flower workshop, which was really inspiring and fun to do. I think everybody enjoyed it and hopefully learned something along the way. Have another one coming up next month, painting autumn colours, apples, quinces and pears, autumn leaves. And speaking of quinces, here are two that I'm painting today. I'm going to switch straight over to the main cameras on the easel now. Here's the easel. Let me bring up the reference photo so you can see what I'm working from. Hey Catherine, yeah, missed you too. Nice to see you again. Oh, Studio Cat wants out. Yeah, it's been a little while. I'm very happy to be back. Missed you too, Karen. Good to see you. I've been missing streaming. Here's the palette. So you can see I've got a bunch of colours already mixed, and I've just made a start on this one. Now usually I tone the panel, although today I haven't. I've just gone straight in. This is an ampersand gesso board panel, which I have I've covered it with a layer of oil primer, let it dry, oil-based primer, lead oil primer, let it dry thoroughly, and I put it on with this, with the curved edge of this palette knife, which is really nice because you end up with some slight imperfections and ridges over what is a fairly slick surface overall. And then over that, today I've just put on a couch of mix of pure gum turpentine and linseed oil. And at the moment, I'm just kind of setting up my main values, just feeding my way in. It's been a long time. I've been painting flowers exclusively for so long. Almost exclusively anyway. I feel a little bit like, I suppose inspired to be painting something different again, to be back. I love painting fruit. You know, one of my favorite subjects, something I, painted a lot. And just feeling my way into this one at the moment. I'm trying to set up the value balance. So this is about a middle value over here, because I want the shadows of this side of the quince to be darker than this, about the same as this, a little bit darker maybe. And then the light side with the yellows I really want to pop out, So we have generally like all of this area these are light shadow. So all of this area is light. All of this is shadow. And then because of the way I have it set up, I have a cast shadow on this side in the background. So I have the light side against the shadow side, and then the shadow side against the lighter side of the background. This is the same way as I set up my flower paintings. And really, this is not so very different. I don't think this is so very different. They are candy. Aren't they beautiful, these quinces? They are from my friend Helen and Dave's traditional English orchard farm, grown completely naturally, without any pesticides. They're not forced, they just grow as they grow, and they're the most incredibly beautiful quinces. And they mostly grow apples there, but they also grow pears, quinces, and these incredible things that at the moment I forget the name of. They have a rather rude name. colloquial name, which I won't tell you what it is. But does that remind you of anything? But they have a real name, so I'm probably going to paint some of these soon too, because I love the colour of them and they're kind of they're fun. So I have a bunch of colours pre-mixed, kind of as a starting point. You can see them on the palette here. So shall I take you through the palette? Do you want to know what's on the palette? It might be helpful if I tell you what's on there. Hello, Vida. Good to see you, Pedro. Nice to see you back. Apologies if I'm missing anyone's comments as I'm painting. Yeah, Alex, these are Quinces, considerably bigger. Here's another one to show you the size. You know, they're really like a good size, these things, you know. Absolutely beautiful. Quinces, great big quinces. Make jam out of them, jelly. So before I go through what I've got on here, what I've got in my hand here is a Cornelison's 1/2 inch hog filbert, very beautiful brush. These are by far the best hog bristle brushes I've ever found. Really amazing quality, stand up to, and just last really well. They have a nice spring to them. For flowers, I was using mostly synthetics. Now I'm into painting more solid forms like this. I tend to use more solid brushes. Studio Cat has actually just left the room. Catherine, I'm not quite sure, right? No problem, Alex. Yeah, maybe he's like, oh God, he's going to start painting again. I thought he'd stopped all that. So I'm just trying to set up the environment for the Quinces at the moment. And I'm thinking mostly about overall values. So in terms of colours, what have I got out here? I've got titanium white. This is an arrowlide yellow. It's a very greenish high chroma yellow. This particular one is Michael Harding Bright Yellow Lake. This is cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and I'm not entirely sure why I put this out, because I haven't used burnt sienna for a very long time, but put it out I did, and of course I haven't touched it yet. Michael Harding green gold, nice high chroma low value yellow green, transparent red oxide, raw umber black and phthalo green. And as I put the colours on, I'll tell you what I'm using in the mixes. So the background here, this is mostly transparent red oxide, burnt raw umber and white. Because overall we're very yellow green in the subject, so I've sent this slightly more orange, but still low chroma. Over here we've got mostly transparent red oxide for a bit of chroma, raw umber and a bit of green gold, because the TRO would send it to orange. I'm going to be trying to keep this loose and rough and kind of smoky and atmospheric, if I can. Excuse me. Cornelison, that's right, Cornelison brushes. This is a Cornelison hog. This what's this series? This is a flat actually, series 42 Cornelison. This is a size 8, it's about 1/2 inch. It's for the background. The size of the panel is 8 inches by 10. So I'll be painting these pretty much the size they are actually, not so much size. But then I'm not very far from the subject, so. Daniel, your cat is 18. Now that is a coincidence, because so is Studio Cat. He's 18 years old too. He's struggling a little bit these days. His back legs are going, but he still seems fairly happy most of the time. He sleeps a lot. He basically just sleeps really now. I think the photo that I have up here is, maybe it's a little bit low chroma. A little bit lower chroma than the actual images, the actual Quince. I'm going to bring down the exposure on the camera on the palette a little bit because I think it's a bit too bright. It's harder to see the colours. I want you to see the colours like as they relate to the Quince. So let me tell you quickly what I've mixed here. So I've got two separate columns here of colour. So this is light, the light part of the Quince. This is actually the local colour of the Quince. Halftone and going into shadow. This one is more orange and this one is more green. So I can mix between them for whether I want it to go more towards orange or more towards green. Light, shadow. These are the background colours, light, shadow, and some greens I've mixed already for the leaves. The leaves are mostly shadow. Colours are beautiful, aren't they, Kathy? Yeah, really beautiful. You're very welcome, Louis. You're very welcome. Yeah, I guess when we all get older, we tend to sleep a lot. I'll tell you a funny thing. Actually, I thought I'd be much further through this painting at this point today, but I got it all set up and everything, and it takes me a long time to set up the still life. You can see from the photo, hopefully, like I spend a lot of time balancing the light and trying to set shadow shapes against light shapes, and have it so it kind of makes a nice design, adding leaves and taking them away, and just trying to kind of set things up so it looks as beautiful as possible. That I think it might make a nice painting. So I was setting it all up and everything, and I think I want the colour in here next to establish this. And I started feeling a bit tired and a bit dizzy, I was up early this morning, and fell asleep on the floor. I lay down for a minute. I've got this big, massive floor cushion that Studio Cat pretty much lives on now. Fell asleep on the floor and woke up about an hour and a half later. So I'm not as far on with this painting as I'd hoped to be, so I'm hoping the light is going to last, but probably not going to last all that well. So, just thinking now about what colour I want for that front area there. Like what you could call the ground, excuse me, I forgot to plug my laptop in. Out of practice streaming, you see. This here, it's going to be light, it's going to be lighter than this, I think. So I'm mostly concerned with the values. I think a little bit lighter than this, or something like around the same colour area, but I'm going to try like slightly lower chroma. I'm going to go mix just a bit of raw umber with white and see how that comes out. I want to make sure it's slightly lighter. I have the colours laid out on the palette as I've pre-mixed a lot of them, so I know where I'm going to be. I have them laid out in roughly in value. So if you could imagine, like I've got light to dark, like here's my white and here's my black. This represents the full range of paint. So I kind of try to lay out the colours roughly where they would be. On the palette, I'd try to lay them out roughly where they would, where they are in terms of the relative values, and it just kind of helps me to keep a handle on it. A little bit lighter than that, maybe. Now this brush is not very good. It's Rosemary's Hog, but I like it because it's splayed very badly, and I like it for textural stuff. It's not much use for anything else, but I like it for just kind of putting in very textural paint with like a lot of brevity, you know. Overall I want this to be fairly, I want it to be loose and almost kind of patchy and very textured around most of it, but with the quinces more defined. Raw umber is like my favorite color. It's like my favorite color, raw umber. I just use it for so much. It always seems to be the one that I'm running out of on my palette, and I end up looking for some more. I'm just trying to manage this transition here. I want that to be soft because I want a hard edge here on this side of this quince, kind of planning ahead the edges, you know. Let's get some cast shadows in. So a bit more chroma in these cast shadows. That's transparent red oxide, and this is Michael Harding green gold. And what I'll end up with is something in between the two, but with quite a lot of chroma, and then I bring in the raw umber to bring the value down. Wanting pretty low value, probably a bit lower than that. So I paint a lot like this. I tend to set up like the whole of the environment for something first, and at the same time as I'm thinking this through, I'm kind of, you know, I'm creating the value balance. Yeah, the background music is nice. I don't remember where this one comes from now. I think it's Kevin MacLeod. I bought it's royalty-free music. You can, but I bought the rights because it's so nice, and I've used it so much. It seemed only fair to me that the guy should get some remuneration for his work. Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com does a lot of royalty-free music. And it's actually, I mean, it's designed for use in videos and films, but it's actually quite nice just to listen to. I've having a lot of sound problems with my setup just lately, but hopefully I've sorted all that out, so the sound should be nice and clean now. Just trying to get these through. So you're already starting to get, like, to me, like a kind of fairly nice sort of a smoky feeling in this background. As soon as most of the background and the ground and the cast shadows have gone in, I always think you start to feel that there's something there, especially when the cast shadows go in. So I always put them in early on. You can feel that there's something there if the values are all right, you know, even before you've really painted anything. Marianne says she's lost me. Please let me know if you can still see the stream okay. As far as I can see, I seem to be still all here. But you never know, things do go a bit awry sometimes. I'm going to drop the value. Say I want lighter value here because the light is coming from this direction in. So I want lighter value over here and slightly darker over here. Just trying to make this textured, very soft. Kind of a soft feeling over here. Resolve the details later. I just mostly want this atmosphere. So I'm thinking, like, in terms of the values now, I'm going to put some shadow in for the leaves in the leaf area because that's going to be my darkest dark. The light is starting to go a little bit. I'll bring the exposure up on the cameras. It's starting to cloud over a little. I may have to start streaming earlier in the day, which I know is a bit rubbish for people who are. It's a bit rubbish for people who are on the West Coast of America. Kathy, this is a Rosemary's Hog, Bristol, flat. And I have to say, I wouldn't recommend them. I like this one because it's splayed so badly, literally on the first use, that it's good for texture work. Now these two brushes are the same size. The one on the right is a Cornelison, beautiful brush. As actually this brush has done a lot more paintings than this one, but it's kept its shape really well. You know, I clean them exactly the same. I clean them I don't put solvent on them, I clean them with olive soap. This one splayed the first time I used it and has never really recovered. Rosemary's brush. However, it might be worth buying one, let it splay and go bad like this, and then you have a nice texture brush. You could also use something like this, which is, I like this very much. This is a Rosemary's brush. It's an Eclipse Coma. Good for softening stuff, you know, but I want a bit more texture in this background for this. They're not lemons or pears, Marianne. They're Marianne. I'm not sure how you pronounce your name, sorry. Marianne, probably. They're quinces. Look. Nice big quince. Here's another one. This is always the problem when I'm streaming live. It does tend to happen sometimes. The light is falling off a cliff, as I usually describe it. Suddenly, all we need is a little bit of cloud to come, and especially this time of year, because I haven't streamed for a while as well. You know, you start to lose the light quite quickly. Hello, Ava. Yeah, aren't these yellows gorgeous? So I'm going to put in a little bit of the leaves, and because the leaves are kind of sharp-edged shapes, I'm going to use this is a Rosemary's Eclipse. It's a synthetic. Any synthetic will do. Get a bit of oil into it. So there's a dark. These green mixes are mostly made, the base of them is ivory black and the arrowlight yellow, this green yellow up here. And then I bring in either cadmium yellow or right down the value range, transparent red, different ways. So I'm interested in this relationship between the dark of the leaves here and the background. I want this to be quite emphatic, an emphatic dark. I want it to be darker than this. And a lot of these marks that I put on now may still be there at the end of the painting, so I'm trying to do them, the form and the texture and the colour and the value, like everything all at the same time. That's a nice dark value. I think the colour is pretty good. Yeah, I think the colours are okay. We'll see how we go, Kathy. Leaves kind of over here, they get slightly lighter, but still dark. That's looking quite nice. So I want, how can I describe it, like textures. I want nice textures out here. Like this looks like the values are going to be pretty good, so I'm going to try and paint like this area of the painting. I may just be able to leave. I like them to be kind of gestural and I'm very particular about the colour mixes. And then when it comes to actually putting it down, what I generally think of as, I call it the brush calligraphy, like the marks that you make. I like to try to make those reflect what it is, and to reflect the leaves, and also bring in some interest, dark shadow there. It's looking pretty nice. I think the values are working fine. So just put little bits in that will kind of suggest that they're sharp-edged. a lighter green, where there's just an area of the leaf where it's coming into the light. That's not light enough though. Make this into a more lower chroma grey. For the leaves, as they come into the light, they lose chroma, so I'm bringing in a little bit of raw umber, that old colour again, and white to drop the chroma and raise the value. I may have dropped the chroma too far. Maybe, yeah. Well, let's get a little bit further through and then see. I just want to get it set up. The couch that I put on, the layer of oil that I'm painting into, problem is my camera on the palette, it's getting very overcast and starting to rain, so my camera on the palette is getting very dark now. Difficult to see the exact values I'm putting down. Yeah, Kathy, come and join the next online class. We're going to be doing some of these quinces, some apples, autumn leaves, maybe pears, all from the same orchard, traditional English orchard farm, my friend's farm, called Day's Cottage in Gloucestershire. Really wonderful. Unfortunate that the values, overall the painting is lighter than it looks on the picture because the values are dropping. Hello Penny, nice to see you. Yes, these are quinces, yes. Kathy said, you said you have part of the shadow colours in green and part in orange. Is the green for the cool shadows? No. I'm not really thinking in terms of warm and cool. It's mostly because I want chroma. I don't want it to be... See, this is transparent red oxide, and that's very red-orange. This is Michael Harding green gold, and that's very green. So if I mix them together, I end up with a high chroma colour that's somewhere in between the two, which is what I want. It's higher chroma than raw umber and higher chroma than burnt umber, and it gives me a bit more chroma in the shadows, which is mostly what I'm looking for. Chroma. Yeah, I should, hopefully this week I should be opening up the next workshop for registration. Let's think about, I want to get in a value and a colour. Oh, the light's really going now. Come on, light, come back. I want to get in a colour for the shadow side of the quinces here. Now, I already have something mixed here. So I mostly need to get the value right. And what I'm mostly going to be looking for is what I call the core shadow, which is like, you know, in a shadow, you get the dark part of the shadow, which goes around here, and then inside here, there'll be reflected light, which is bouncing off the ground into the shadow, and it will get lighter. But I like to establish the shadow with the core shadow value. So I've got a greenish version of it here. It's hard to see now the light is going. An orange version and a greenish version, and I mixed between them. They're the same value, like right down the value scale, until I get about the value that I want down here. It's going to look very dark going on. That's too orange. So I'm thinking about the value. Because I'm painting directly on the white panel, it's getting quite a bit of chroma from the kind of translucency as well. So let's try and establish this edge of this quince nicely here. I'm not bothered about it being perfect, but I want it to be quince-like and not. Oh, if only the light hadn't gone so bad. These are both fairly transparent colours, but they're not going on all that. All that deep. Oh, the light is really gone. I'll try and crank the cameras up, but the problem is that I can crank them up a bit, but only so far, and then the quality of the video goes a bit funny as well, because they don't like being pushed that hard. I'll try and remember, like now we're into autumn, coming into winter, I'll try and remember to have a backup light set up when I stream so I can switch the light on. And it will keep it a bit more steady. I think I'm going too orange. I can always fix some of this later with glazes if I'm not happy. I'm planning to work on this for a few sessions, this one. The value I'm putting down here isn't quite as dark as it looks. Reflected light is going to be a little bit lighter all around here. It's just painting in really broad areas at the beginning. And there's only really on the quince on the left, there's only a very small part is the really dark shadow, because there's light bouncing off this quince into the shadow of this one, which is bringing up the value quite a lot. But I like to try, and early on I like to try and simplify things as much as I possibly can. Oh, come back light, it's getting a little bit hard to paint. If I'm still working on this one on Thursday and I stream on it, then I'll set up a backup light as well. So in here we're going to have, so you see I have, like on the palette, I have these carefully laid out and then I mix between them as I go. We're going to have quite a bit of reflected light coming in here into the shadow. And then just a very dark, like an occlusion shadow that separates the two. This is actually a little bit further out. I don't, Kathy. Well, I've done a few landscapes, but not for a little while. I've been wondering about maybe getting out and doing some. I would like to do more. I definitely would like to do more landscape painting. I think partly it's I'm still in love with still life, you know. I kind of feel I still have a lot really to do with still life. Thinking about, like, this quince on the right is definitely slightly more green than this one on the left. So for the very light parts of this quince on the left, values are not actually all that high. I want to see if that's going to stand out enough. It's going to be, it's not going to stand out enough. I'm probably going to push the values a little bit in the light, push them up a little bit higher so it stands out well there. I've got pretty thick paint on here as well because I like it to be thicker in the lights. And maybe I might bring the value of this shadow down. It's actually nowhere near as dark and brown as it looks on the cameras. It's because I'm losing the light. And then this one over this side will be more green. This is just like what they call the local colour, you know, slightly different yellow on each quince. I could paint them in the same yellow, but I would like to reflect this actual colour if I can. So you can see the edges are starting to work now, although the colours are off because the light is so bad on the camera. So I set up this really soft edge here, and then when I bring in this here, if I've got it the right colour and I don't need to fuss with it, I can get a nice hard edge there, and it really helps to show the form. Hard edge against a soft edge. Yeah, they do. They're very bumpy. I want to get my overall values and everything set up and working well first. And once I'm happy with that, then I'll hopefully be able to get right into the texture of them. So I'm hoping this will be dry enough for me to work on some more tomorrow. If I could get a light set up quickly there I can bring in the light is so bad now, it's actually getting to the point where I might not be able to paint, so I'm just going to move a light over. See if it will if I can bring in enough kind of just a bit of fill light really without changing the subject too much. Find a spare socket now. Try not to knock everything over. So I have these, wrong one. I have these Niwa lights. It's not going to do much for the palette, but it's lighting the subject a bit more. Slightly changed what I'm seeing, which is a little bit frustrating. But at least enough probably for me to continue. Let's try backing this camera off and then bringing the light up, and hopefully we'll have something that's at least a little bit closer to what I'm seeing here. Yeah, I think that's better. You can see a little bit more the actual colours now. Thank you, Constance. Nice to see you too. It's slightly changed the light on the Quinces now. Overall, they're pretty much the same. Just trying to adjust the angle of the light, because I'm painting from life, you see. I'm not painting from this photo. I've got the actual Quinces in front of me. So that does change things a bit. I'm already seeing that I want to maybe change some of these colours a little bit, but too much chroma in places. The problem is it's hard to judge with what you're seeing on the screen, because when I bring up the exposure of the camera, it also tends to bring up the chroma a lot on the camera as well at the same time. The palette, unfortunately, I don't think I can do a lot about now. I'll try and bring it up a little bit. At least we can see the painting there. I think I might have too much chroma in there. Let's do some adjustments. Like, this is the crucial phase for me of a painting. I spend quite a lot of time at this point, where I'm right near the start, trying to decide, overall balance of where I want chroma and where I don't want as much, and whether I think the values are going to work. Overall, I think it's looking all right. That's such a shame. The light was beautiful when I started, really nice. I mean the light outside, coming in from the window. Just overall value balance I'm thinking about. So we've got occlusion shadow under here. Like this is what makes an object sit on the surface, is those dark shadows there. Need to bring that light up even a little more, I think. Oh, wrong one. Yeah. That's probably closer, I think, to what I'm seeing. There we go. I'm not sure I want this value to be quite that low, but we'll see. We'll do a bit more and we'll see. At the moment I'm thinking I'm not so happy with this. I think there's a bit too much chroma and it's a bit too brown. I want to swing it. I want to drop the chroma slightly and I want to swing it more towards hue, more towards yellow, I think. But I don't want too much chroma, so I'm going to try. Anything that I put on there is going to mix with what's already there, so I'm going to try a bit of so this is just ivory, black and titanium white. And I'm going to bring in a little bit of the green gold to swing the hue slightly, so this should drop the chroma. You never know. I mean, sometimes I'll make a change like this earlier on and then decide that I don't like it later and go back. But you can't. The problem is when you're painting into a couch like this, you can never re-find this texture. You can't really get that back once you painted over it too many times. I'm happy with that, I think, though. It was just getting a bit too orangey, a bit too warm and orangey. Candy approves. Or was that the light you were talking about? Maybe it was the light. I like that more. I think I like that more. And the edges, this edge here I've massively overdone. It's not that soft. But I will always kind of in a way overstate the edges in order to, because it gives you a lot more atmosphere and depth. This transition is not very, it's too harsh. Too quick. Yeah, I think we're starting to get a feel for the light, where the light is going to be now. Bit better. So you'll see, I'm painting in really broad areas of colour, trying to get them in the right place and describe the forms as I go. My main goal at this point really with the painting is to try and make sure that I get the value set up well and everything is where I want it to be, and I need to change as little as possible later, because I find there's an immediacy to the early stages of a painting and I want to leave as much as I possibly can. Yeah, backgrounds can be difficult. I mean, I think a lot of it with the background is making sure that you set up what you want ahead of time. So I have a lot of the background I have here. You can probably see on the photo is like it's just a piece of card that I've painted onto. And I have loads of those bits of wood, bits of card that I painted onto. So I can try a lot of different ones, and then a lot of it is, most of it I think, for me anyway, the way I set them up, a lot of it is to do with setting up an interesting pattern of light and shadow in the background. Like I was saying before, this, on the Quinces, the left side is the light and the right side is the shadow, and I've set up the background so it's the opposite, and I've done that by putting a board this side of the still life which casts a shadow here. So that I have light shapes against dark and then dark shapes against light on this side. I'm not sure I'm quite there with the shadow colours of the Quinces yet. That may need a bit more. Let's get a nice emphatic edge here, thick paint. The greens now. The greens I mix, my base recipe, if you like, for greens is I start with ivory black and then I mix in this arylide yellow, which is this is Michael Harding Bright Yellow Lake, PY3 the pigment is. And if I want it to go more towards a blue-green, I add a little bit of phthalo green. This is Winsor & Newton Windsor Green yellow shade. If I want it to go more yellow, I'll put in cad yellow. In the lower values, if I want it to go more towards a yellow-green, I'll put in TRO, transparent red oxide, because it allows me to keep the chroma. Swings the hue, keeps the chroma. My approach to mixing is a little different than what you might see a lot of people doing. And it basically comes from, I just think about the hue, the value, and the chroma. That's really all I'm really interested in. I don't need any particular esoteric palettes or CMYK or anything like that. I just use the colors that I think I'm going to need to get the result that I want. And I just think in terms of the hue, the value, and the chroma. That is too light. Too light. It would not be that light there. It does get a bit lighter, but not that much. So I'm just trying to set up the surface of this quince on the left. You see, if I can paint it quite loosely and roughly like this, and keep this feeling, then I've switched to a smaller brush. This is another Cornelison's Hog Filbert. Then I can hopefully try and use the paint to explain the form a little bit, and then just go in and do some more details, Add some more details further through. Mostly I want to be sculpting these forms out at this point. Well, so far so good. I think my shadow color on my quince there is way too orange. So I can use this. See, I've got an orange shadow color and a green shadow color, so I can bring the green shadow color in and bring it more green. just change the hue subtly, and it does make a difference without changing the value too much. But there are some orange parts where the quince is starting to age. Actually, I've had these quinces, funny enough, I've had these quinces in the fridge for quite a long time, and what I'm finding is that now I've got them out, the one on the left especially seems to be starting to age quite rapidly. Let's sort this edges out a bit here. It's getting some orange bits as I'm painting here. It's getting more orange, little orange bits on it. So I'm still working to bring this. There's parts of the shadow are more orange and parts of it are more green, so it's kind of trying to get that into play a little bit. The background cards, it's literally just craft card, and I just paint on it very roughly with a big brush and oil paint. I just kind of throw it on and then I try them out and see how they look, you know. Some of them are wood. I've got some bits of wood, some MDF that I've primed first with acrylic primer. The thing is just to make a load, you know, just to get a load of stuff together and try things out and see what you like. But definitely make your own backgrounds to be what you want. You know, set up the background that you want and then try and paint the color accurately. That's the way I approach mine. This is starting to feel lumpy and there, which is kind of okay. It's getting this one here I want to work into more this side. But I think my overall value is going to be okay. This I might get away with leaving all of the background, which I'll be really happy if I can. You know, I want to bring out some of the kind of significance of them, the there-ness of them. I want to give them some, try to imbue them with life and not to have a lot of texture in there. Increasingly I'm trying to paint with a lot of texture. So now I'm painting the quince on the right. I'm in my more yellow, my green yellow side of my colours that I've mixed, because this one it's a slightly different local colour, it's a slightly more green, and I want to reflect that, you know. So what I'm hoping is, like, you know, I'll get this established, and then later on I'll be able to move on to bring in more. I really want to paint the leaves carefully. I just wanted to get them kind of established, the values for now. And I want to bring in more modelling on these quinces, but, you know, I find a lot of the time if the colours are good, then you need to do a lot less than you might think in terms of careful modelling of the form. And quite a lot can be described with the brushwork if you're careful with the values, right up to there. So this plane here is like moving away from the light slightly, so slightly in shadow. But I'm trying to keep a very clear separation. So like this side, this is the line that separates the light and the shadow, and I'm very careful to try and keep that, to keep these values closer together over this side. Does something belong to the light or does it belong to the shadow? I'm always asking myself that. Does it belong to the light or the shadow? Try to keep the values clearly separated. This brush is too dirty now. I've lost chroma. This shadow is way too orange, so I want to sort that out as well. Go more towards my greens. This one, the shadow on this side should definitely be more green anyway, because this quince on the right is more of a green yellow. And I think this stuff matters, you know, it matters to have a consistent kind of a hue between the light and the shadow. The shadows usually in yellow things, yellow objects like this, I find the shadows will generally tend more towards orange in hue than the lights, but not too much, not like a ridiculous amount. Some subtle reflected light around in here. I've got to make sure I don't do this too light. It's almost the same value here as the cast shadow. So my background here, my cast shadow is light, is darker. So I'm going to bring that value up just a little bit around here, because I want to lose that edge there. It helps with the life of the painting. Any tips for drawing? Yeah. Work on your accuracy. Practice accuracy, drawing accuracy mostly, I would advise. And everything else will come. So you can, even just drilling like shapes, so you can draw some random shapes and then on another, put them next to each other upright on an easel facing you vertically, and then try, without any measuring, just eyeballing, try to exactly replicate the shape that you drew, just right next to it. And with it being right next to you, you will be able to It's easier to judge whether you're right or not. And then when you're done and you think you've got it accurate, like you've really tried hard, trace your copy and lay the tracing over the original and see where you went wrong, and then try again. It might not seem like an awful lot of fun, but that's extremely good practice for drawing. It gives you like a level of focus that you really need to be able to draw well. And accuracy is the thing to start with, I believe. I'll put it this way, I've never regretted any of the accuracy practice I've done. Now this brush that I'm handling these edges with is another Rosemary's brush, which I do like, and it's an Eclipse Coma. Basically, my feeling with Rosemary's brushes is that the synthetics are good, and some of them have some really nice characteristics. The natural brushes I've been really disappointed with. The natural hair brushes, all of them, I've been really disappointed with. They just don't seem to be very well made, and they don't last. And I also have a theory that synthetics are easier to make. I mean, if I'm being blunt, I don't think Rosemary's brushes deserve their reputation, except for a few that I really like, and the Eclipse series I think are really wonderful brushes. And came across those. Kathy Speranza put me onto those painting flowers, and because I've spent the summer painting flowers, and they really are wonderful, you know. They seem almost designed to describe petals. That's an interesting thing to do, Kathy. Yeah, that would certainly help. But I would advise like doing just line drawings, just basic line block-ins, and work on your accuracy mostly. Oh, now the light's coming back. I can back off my fill light a little bit because it's too bright now. Oh, there we go. There's almost enough light to paint by now. Oh, well, that worked out all right. I'll have to remember to do this in future. So we're starting to come. Little Quinces are starting to come. Overall, though, I think the value balance across the painting is looking all right. They feel physical in there. I'm probably not going to bother too much about trying to paint the shapes within the Quinces perfectly, but I do want the textures to work. Definitely those shadows were far too orange to start with. I'm glad I reined them in. Bring it in. So I'm still thinking mostly about like overall value balance at the moment. Monday mops. Ooh. Monday mops, that sounds interesting. You know, I find it really hard to reply to someone whose username is Satan. Not because I'm religious, it just throws me a bit. But can you describe like how Sargent approached a painting? Actually, need to study his works. Yes, Sargent worked sight size, and he stood a long way back, so he worked very slowly, which most people don't realize. They think Sargent worked very quickly because you see these wonderful expressive brushstrokes, but he actually worked very slowly. And from what I've read, you know, from descriptions of him working, and he would stand well back from his subject, and he would look at his painting and have his painting next to the subject and stand well back, like I'm talking like 10 feet back or something, you know. and then kind of flick his eye from one to the other, and decide where his next mark was going to be. Obviously, he'd have his palette in his hand, and I don't paint that way. Mix the colour that he wanted, decide what his next stroke was going to be, walk over, emphatically make the stroke, and then stand back and check it and see if he was happy with it. And actually, this way of painting that I'm doing at the moment is fairly similar, except that I'm not so far back because I have a much smaller subject. Obviously, he was working on portraits mostly. But each stroke is really, really carefully considered, and I think that's what people sometimes miss about Sargent. And that's what made his work so strong. You're welcome, Janice. Hello, Debbie. Thank you. Yeah, going to be. I think I'm going to be working on this one some more anyway. I think perhaps I want some more chroma and a lighter value in here. This is looking a little dull now. It's hard sometimes to know. Sorry, I'm just playing with the light, backing this light off a little bit. No, too much. Can't back it off that much, I don't think, not yet. I feel like I want just a little bit more chroma in this background here where the light is. Let's see. Green gold, TRO. I'm quite happy with the value, but I want a little bit more chroma there. It looks just a little dull to me at the moment. Actually, maybe even slightly lighter than that. What can I bring that up and keep some chroma? Lighten it with a little bit of the arrowline yellow, perhaps. And I don't want it to go too yellow. Use a little bit of burnt sienna. Swing it back orange a little bit. See what we get here. I like the value, but I just want it to have a little bit more chroma. That's better. I was just feeling a little bit like there wasn't so much depth there, a little bit flat. I always end up doing this. I find with my backgrounds, I end up tweaking them, and then I lose something. I wish sometimes that I would just get a background right first time, every time, and then I wouldn't need to change anything, and I could keep the looseness and the freshness. But I do, especially in the shadow areas, I find I usually want to. Usually it's the chroma I'm playing with, if I want a little bit more chroma. Let's try and bring... How would it be if it was really dark back here? Good vibes. Nice. Oh, I'm having trouble. Hello, Suzanne. Nice to see you. I'm having trouble keeping up with the comments. Hello, Michelle. Nice to see you too. I think I missed a couple of comments there. Let me scroll back up quickly. Thank you. Love the background. That's site-by-site comparison. Yes, that's right. Yes. No, he did. He worked very slowly, Sergeant. Apparently. need to apologise for your name. It just throws me a little. Satan. You're not actually saying that. Evergreen brushes. Yeah, someone mentioned those to me recently. I must try those. I must try. A couple of people have mentioned those recently. The evergreen brushes. I keep meaning to get some. Oh, what size the board was on the speaker stand? Oh, I don't know. Let me check quickly. It's about 14 inches by about 24. I think something like that. Sometimes I think it's too small and I would prefer a bigger one. I still want some more glow back here. I still want some more chroma there. Problem is, I'm feeling that I might be getting too close to the colour of the quinces if I'm not careful. It's funny, I dropped that chroma right out and now I'm putting it back in again. I generally think I'm probably happier now. See, I'm trying to keep this very soft and keep this edge around the quince hard there. Very hard if I can. I feel the need to block in the leaves more now so that that's all covered. So this is where I'm using this rosemary synthetic to really get the sharp edges at the edges of these leaves. But this value is too dark. That needs to come up. I'm going to have to get a smaller brush out now. Hello, Chrysalida. Nice to see you. It has been a while. You're very welcome. I just want these shapes of these leaves to be standing out a bit more, so that means I need some higher value back here. The relationship is just not, it's not quite there. The problem is it does mean losing a little bit of what I've done with the edges. Maybe we'll be able to bring it back. I think a lot of when I was saying I wanted more chroma, it's partly was value as well. They do some evergreens, apparently do some, I think they call them daggers. That's better. It was the value mostly, which I keep meaning to try. I keep forgetting I want to try them. To actually maybe even up, I'm going to have to destroy this a little bit, even around here. Higher value. Yeah, I think that would be really nice for kind of very calligraphic marks dagger brushes. They're very long synthetics with a very sharp tip. I wanted this edge to show more, so I had to bring that value up there. And for backgrounds, I try to make sure that there's no like a single direction of brushstroke coming out, and it helps to kind of create a kind of a smoky sort of a depth. Back there. Atmosphere is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, see, I'm still thinking that's actually the value needs to come up right the way over there. And because I've got this couch on, I've got a very slick surface, I can at least keep some suggestion of that brushiness in the background still. Getting a little dark as the light is going. I'm going to bring the light up a little bit more. Again. Oh, wrong way. Better. So kind of like I get to this point and I'm at sort of a like pause point. But there's quite a bit in there and I need to slow down, think about what's gonna bring it further now. Yeah, I bet it does take a lot of experience to use those daggers. Yeah. Heidi Jo Summers. Yes, Heidi Jo Summers. Yeah. Yeah, she does some beautiful work. By all means, send me some drawings, yeah. If I can find the time, I'll have a quick look, and I will also be able to send you some exercises, give you some, when I'm not actually painting, some clearer ideas of some exercises you can do to develop your drawing skills. Little changes now. Just trying to see what is going to bring it out more. Kathy, if you go to my website, you can find me on Google. Just look up my name. Or you put Paul Foxton in, or Learning to See. Is my blog, and on there, on my Learning to See site, if you put Paul Foxton Learning to See, then it will come up for sure. And there's a contact form on there. If you want to get in touch with me, you can do so that way. Or just presumably we're friends on Facebook. Just PM me. All of this is dark. Yeah, so I'm gonna I'll be putting some stuff out about it soon. If you about the next workshop, which is going to be coming up very soon, in about 2 weeks' time, online workshop. We will be painting quinces, these very ones, apples. My friend's orchard farm, they have most incredibly beautiful apples you'd ever see. Nothing like supermarket apples. They're all naturally grown like traditional Gloucestershire varieties. A lot of them were almost extinct before they saved them. And there's so much character. We're going to be painting a lot of those apples, mostly apples, and the colours are amazing. With some leaves, and I'll be taking through, basically working from photos, paint-alongs, working through step by step. So we paint along live. So I give you the photos, materials list, everything you need to paint along, and then we work on them together. A little bit bothered about drawing here. This is not right. This should be out like there. I don't want to be, there's always a tendency to straighten things out, make them look more right and straight. Brains like things to be straight. Nature is not more beautiful than that. Colours of these leaves are just incredible, like these beautiful orange greens almost in the shadows. I think I want some more light around here. Really bring these leaves out. Which means I'm probably going to need to repaint those edges there. And keep what I can. That's nice. I think. How do I set up a still life? Ooh, I could do a whole lesson on that, several lessons. It's mostly to do with the light. So, you know, I'm always working by natural light. Except today, of course, where the light is so bad that I've put a backup light on. But usually I work by natural light. You want a single light source. So if you have more than one light source in a room, we'll completely destroy the separation of the light and shadow, and that's the thing you need the most, is the separation, clear separation of light and shadow. Light it from one side, slightly above if you can. And that will solve 99% of problems with still life setups. Oh, what is it? Where have you been? I think partly I brought the value up here because I've put the second light on now, and it has brought a lighter value onto the background than it was before. It's maybe not a bad thing. We'll just go with it and see what we end up with. Oops. One's out again already. I obviously need some lighter values around here. I haven't handled this part of this leaf where it gets lighter very well. There's a bit stuff needs to be sorted out there, but I want to get an impression of the stem in, and it's a very emphatic dark that comes right out of this quince here. I'm gonna perhaps change where it is slightly in order to show it. It's almost grey. And handle the detail of that a little bit more later. the box thing. Yeah, the box thing is incredibly useful. But what I do mostly is I have a propped up background, and then I'll put a board to the left of it, leaning up against it, so that gives me a bit of shadow across the background. So my backgrounds are rarely all the same, they usually have light and shadow on them. Some of it will be light and some of it will be in shadow. I've lost this edge now, but I felt I needed to change the values a bit there. So when the paint's still wet, you know, there's a lot you can do with it still. Yes, away. I do use black. I use ivory black, which is really a low chroma blue. I use it mostly in mixes. I think the thing about not using black is a myth, and actually makes painting considerably harder. I don't use a lot of it, but there are some situations in which it's the perfect pigment to add to a mix. And for low chroma, kind of near neutrals, I'll use ivory black and raw umber a lot. Just going to knock back some of that texture back there, is a bit much maybe. Okay, I think that's not a bad place to be for the end of a first session. I'm going to leave it fairly roughly painted, because what I'll probably do now is allow it to dry off a little bit and then work into it some more, and try and bring those forms out a little more. And on the quinces, and we'll probably, a lot of this is like this where it's very loose and open. I'll probably leave this. But in some places, like on the quinces, I'll paint a little bit further to try and bring out the forms. Overall, if I squint down, I'm pretty happy with the value balance. I'm happy overall with the color. I think it's coming pretty well. This is, I always say this, and then I stand back and look, and I immediately see things I want to change. I want to model the quinces a little bit more. I've got a problem around this edge where I've changed the background here and I've ended up with a line around here. Stuff like that annoys the hell out of me. It's destroys the feeling of naturalness. Like I'm very keen on losing edges where I can. And this is a lost edge effectively here. The background around the quince is the same value there, so I need to make sure that I don't lose that. But overall, I think it's coming all right. Not too bad for a first attempt. I need to first hit. Need to have a sit back and a think about what I'm going to want to do on the next time through. Oh, I just got to open the door. Everybody's just come back. Okay, thank you very much for joining, everybody. It was nice to paint for you again. Hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, next workshop will be coming soon. If you're on the email list or you follow me on Facebook or whatever, then you'll hear about it. As soon as I've got the registration and everything set up, I'll be able to put the links in the streams as well, so you'll be able to find it then. Don't worry, it'll be coming in a couple of weeks or something like that. Thanks very much, everybody. And